The NBA is in a state of evolution, and it has some of the biggest stars to thank. Every now and then, a living legend will pass through this league and leave a mark on it. While impact players are often characterized as game changers, the following megastars are league changers, from on-court styles to off-court empowerment. These players changed the whole course of the game. So before I start the video, please do subscribe to our channel and stick around to the end of the video to know about the people who changed basketball forever. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss a video. Kareem AbdulJabbar, the dunk ban. To opponents, Kareem AbdulJabbar was a literal nightmare. At 7'2" and 225 pounds, AbdulJabbar, who then went by the name Lou Alcindor, was an unstoppable force with the height and skill to dunk over literally anyone with ease. During Lou Alcindor's first season, playing on the varsity team at UCLA, he routinely dunked on anyone and everyone, en route to averaging 29 points per game on 67% shooting. He was unstoppable. So naturally, the NCAA made a rule to prohibit dunking ahead of the 1967-68 season that would remain in place for 10 years. Once the skyhook was in place, game over. Alcindor mastered the most unstoppable shot in the history of the sport. Not only did he skyhook his way to 2 national championships in college, he then used that same shot to win him to 6 NBA MVP awards, 6 NBA titles, and a record 387 career points, the most in NBA history. Anytime you cause institutional change that leads to a 10-year ban, and then out of it respond by mastering the most unstoppable move that would alter the course of NBA history, well, I think that qualifies as a game changer. Oscar Robertson, NBA free agency. Big O is most known for being the first NBA player to average a triple-double. But his greatest contribution to basketball came after a tense dispute he had with the NBA. In 1970, the NBA tried to merge with its competitor, the American Basketball Association, or ABA. At the time, the NBA players were bound by reserve clauses in their contracts, which stated that players were required to stay with the teams that first signed them even after their contracts ended. This effectively gave team owners total power over where players played and what they were paid. With that in mind, NBA players saw a merger with the ABA as an attempt to remove their options to play elsewhere. And as president of the National Basketball Players Association, Oscar Robertson filed a lawsuit against the NBA. Robertson v. National Basketball Association in 1970 was the landmark case that delayed the NBA-ABA merger until players were able to negotiate more freedom to choose where and for what price they worked. The settlement occurred in 1976. Robertson, who retired in 1974, never saw the benefits of free agency that were literally won in his name. Charles Barkley, the Barkley Rule. When he was anywhere near the basket, Charles Barkley was one of the most fearsome basketball players who ever lived. And in 1999, the NBA made a rule in his name designed to control a dominant skill of his. At 6'6" and 260 pounds, Barkley was able to turn his back to the basket, put the opponent on his backside, and back them up beneath the rim before laying the ball into the hoop. The process was often tiring and ate up a lot of time. So, with the intent of speeding up gameplay, the NBA created the Barkley Rule, stating that players dribbling below the foul line could only face away from the basket for up to 5 seconds. Barkley didn't only change the sport on a technical level, however. He also influenced the way its athletics were viewed and covered. His plain-spokenness and willingness to criticize the NBA made him into an anti-hero of sorts, and in 1993, when Barkley was at the top of his career, his "I am not a role model" ad campaign for Nike criticized America's tendency to glorify athletes. "Just because I dunk a basketball doesn't mean I should raise your kids," Barkley said. Michael Jordan, global branding. It's somewhat incredible to think that arguably the greatest player in the history of the sport changed the game off the court more than he did on the court. The NBA can trace its roots as a global power back to the historic flights of Air Jordan. The image of basketball changed when Michael Jordan arrived. Shorts got longer and baggier, which tied back to his need for extra room to wear his University of North Carolina's practice shorts under his Chicago Bulls uniform. Pickup games saw people stick their tongues out on every move, a tic Jordan inherited from his father. The Jordan brand and Jumpman logo lifted athlete endorsements to a different level. Nearly 20 years removed from his last NBA game, he still sets the standard for NBA shoe deals. Notice, we haven't mentioned his basketball accomplishments yet. They're important and unbelievable. 6 championships, 6 final MVPs, 10 scoring titles, 5 MVPs, highest career player efficiency rating in history, but they're uniquely his. His business blueprint has shown fellow hoopers how to make their earnings potential skyrocket. Wilt Chamberlain, the rule breaker. Many of the most basic rules of modern basketball were created as counters to Wilt Chamberlain's abilities, the single most dominant player who ever lived. Chamberlain's accomplishments read like video game stats. He is, of course, the only person to score 100 points in a game, but he is also the only person to have ever averaged 50 points per game for a whole season, as well as the only person to have ever recorded 55 rebounds in a game. Wilt Chamberlain was literally unstoppable, and in an effort to slow him down, the NBA changed the dimensions of the court by widening the paint and trying to keep him further from the basket. Additionally, it set in motion goaltending rules that prevented him from grabbing his teammates' shots from midair and dunking them when they were headed into the basket anyway. Simply, basketball as we know it was modeled by Chamberlain's dominance. Steph Curry, three-point king. Threes are greater than 2. It's basic math that my 2-year-old understands. And yet Stephen Curry took that idea and proved its success to the point where the entire league played copycat and flipped on its axis faster than ever before. When Curry entered the NBA in 2009, the average NBA team attempted 18 threes a game. It stayed around that mark for the first 3 years of Curry's career until his breakout season of 2012-13, the same year that Golden State's Golden Child set the all-time record for made threes, a record he would go on to break multiple times in the coming years. NBA teams for the first time averaged 20 three-point attempts per game. As Curry's shooting continued to explode and the Warriors transformed into an unstoppable force, the rest of the league ramped up its efforts to keep pace with the freewheeling Warriors. By the 2018-19 season, the 5th straight year that Curry's Warriors reached the NBA Finals, teams were shooting over 32 of them per game. Kids all over the world have spent the better part of the last decade emulating Curry in driveways, parks, and gyms, a trend helped by the fact that Curry is about as physically relatable as any superstar in the history of the game. You can't just go in the driveway and uncork drop step dunks, or look in the mirror and pretend to be chiseled like LeBron. Even the famous tagline, "Be like Mike," ignores the fact that it's utterly impossible to replicate the 6'6" Air Jordan. But anyone can have as many off-balance threes as humanly possible. Look no further than the NBA itself as James Harden, Damian Lillard, Kemba Walker, Trae Young, and many others have followed in Curry's footsteps and leaned into the novel concept of threes are greater than 2. The three-point revolution represents the biggest on-court strategic change in the history of the sport, and there's no other player more single-handedly responsible for it than the Splash Brother. Seldom are game changers idle. So guys, that was it for today's video, and let me know in the comments below on which player's achievements surprised you the most. See you in the next one. Until then, peace out.